police basically to make sure that the cesspools are changed out. There's a University of Hawaii study that addressed the specific areas on all of the islands that showed where it was needed the most. And that, of course, is the coastline and other specific areas. That's where we should start with this. But to do a point of sale change out is really not practical. It'll have inadvertent repercussions with lenders and homeowners. We need time to digest this, disclose it, make sure that we can negotiate with a buyer or seller to figure out how we can best address this. And there will have to be someone to police this action. There specifically,
you're kind of getting overtime. Can you wrap it up? And
yes, quickly.
Your written testimony will be considered. I mean, that's so.
Thank you so much.
If you could just hit the high point. Okay.
All right. Specifically, we are opposed to the point of sale, 180 days, and we are also opposed to the non-domestic wastewater requirements for farms. We wish that the subdivisions would be reconsidered to use only 15 units and insist on a wastewater system for 15 units is cost prohibitive. And there is a lot more in the written testimony. Thank you so much for listening. Mostly it's the point of sale that we need to address today.
Okay, next person on Kauai. Thank you.
My concern would also deal with the...
Could you please state your name? Oh, please state your name.
Kurt Bosser.
Thank you.
My concern would be about the change-out language when the change-out to the cesspool is triggered per paragraph R by any sale. And my point would be that interfamily transactions into trust, or transactions between related business enterprises where there wasn't any consideration be excluded. The typical deed says that there's payment of some nominal consideration on these transactions, usually $10, and I would want it to be clear that those transactions would be excluded so that parents could give their property to their children, and if somebody made a mistake on a deed, by not taking out the $10 language, that wouldn't require them to change out the cesspool on their family property.
Thank you. Okay, that was the three who testified. It was anyone else on Kauai? Okay, thank you. Okay, let's go to Mel.
We have one.
Good morning, my name is Mark Tanaka. I'm with Keller Realty. I think this proposal is very noble and honorable in that it's trying to preserve the water quality integrity. I have several concerns, one of which is the trigger point. The point of sale would be devastating for Kauai, being that we're a rural community with tremendous amount of properties with cesspools. Say if the point of sale is to be the trigger point of the conversion from cesspool to septic. If you're a seller, you may be needing to sell a property, and that would pose a financial hardship on a seller. If you're a buyer and trying to buy your first property, you're just barely trying to save the money for the down payment, more or less, trying to budget for the cost of the septic system. If you're a parent trying to convey a property to your child, is that considered to be a sale? And that's the second point. I did not see in any way, in anywhere in the regulation what a sale is defined to be. As Kurt Bossert mentioned, and a friendly conveyance, would that constitute a sale? Even if it should be no money's exchange for $10. And nowhere did I see in the regulation what is the start date. In the meantime, this proposal is wreaking havoc in the financial world and also in the property sales. If you're a lender, do you budget the money for the cost of the septic system now? Or if you're a buyer, how do you enforce that there will be compliance? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next lowest number of people we have is on Oahu, actually. Why don't we just... Mary Boucher.
They're doing the lowest numbers first, and then coming to you last. So you leave. A bunch of you will leave. Be nice about it.
Good morning.
My name is Mary Boucher. I'm speaking on behalf of the over 8,000 members of the Hawaii Association today. We've submitted our written testimony already. I'll just point out a couple of highlights, a few highlights of our testimony. While we respect the many responsibilities and the workload of the Department of Health, we are very concerned that this process has been rushed, leading to an incompleteness. We feel it's a very important issue for very many people, and the normal collaborative partners that work with the Department of Health on many other issues regarding clean water, realtors, contractors, bankers, landowners, we would all like to be involved in this. Businesses, we've proven to be good partners in the past, we'd like to be partners again. The point of sale discussion, it is not clear. My interpretation of the rules as currently written, it would affect family transfer, trust transfer, foreclosure. This will not have the desired reach. If you look at the draft study done by Geology and Geophysics for the Department of Health in June, they noted areas of greatest concern. And we looked at those areas, and many of those areas of greatest concern are also the areas of lowest turnover. So we're not really going to get where we need to go. The mortgage meltdown is how we refer to what occurred in 2008. And as a result of the mortgage meltdown, the lending regulations don't allow large credits to be left in escrow any longer. So say a seller can pay it to the buyer at the time of sale and they can be held in escrow. If there's a mortgage involved, no lender will close the loan with a large credit like that hanging out there. So at the very least, if the point of sale ends up being something that the citizens of Hawaii truly want, then we would say that we need to delay the implementation so that we can work with the federal congressional offices to get the laws changed so that that could be facilitated. Otherwise, you wouldn't accomplish it anyway. The EPA recognizes septic systems to be of use in rural large parcels. They call it cost-effective and a long-term option. So this blanket of 15 lots to be the beginning and end all of what size subdivision should have a sewage treatment facility, we feel that it's arbitrary and that there are lots of other things that should be taken into consideration for when a public sewage treatment facility should be required. Speaking of sewer systems, a proliferation of small privately held managed sewer systems, particularly at lower elevations, but in general would all be managed by private small homeowners associations rather than government entities. And so we look at that with concern. One example we can provide is that there is currently a private sewer treatment facility on the south end of Hawaii Island that was designed for a certain size of development, and that development was never built out to its fullest capacity. So there are very few ratepayers left to pay the sewer fee in that area. That facility is getting to be older now. There's equipment failures taking place, and it's difficult to get that equipment paid for and maintained. So we worry about the risk that could be occurred to the environment in that area, and so we just really think there's a lot of things that we could be very helpful to help the Department of Health on if we were allowed to be at the table. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Jack Legal.
Officer?
Yeah.
There were people ahead of me on the list that are still here to testify, so I'm wondering if something is not marked correctly on the list.
There's four different, I have 4 different sheets, so. And I'm not sure which sheet. Mr. Legal, go ahead.
Good morning. and aloha. My name is Jack Legal, and I'm the president-elect of the Honolulu Board of Realtors, representing about more than 6,000 realtors on the island of Oahu. We have submitted our written report, our written concerns, and I'll just summarize the highlights of the testimony. First of all, HBR, the Honolulu Board of Realtors, believes that Oahu's wastewater systems are important. We don't believe that the proposed rule change is a reasonable response when there are so many unintended consequences. And these are the following consequences to this change of rule. First is the cost to replace a cesspool with a septic tank is an economic burden that falls disproportionately on homeowners and families already struggling with our high cost of living. This proposed rule change puts the price of home ownership out of reach even farther for families in our rural areas. The second one, the rule change also imposes burden on our farmers, already faced with a number of challenges that impact their long-term viability. At a time when we are struggling with food security issues, this change makes it harder for farmers to grow more food at affordable prices. And finally, if adopted, this will could change the cost of building affordable housing on Oahu by requiring a private wastewater treatment facility to sewer system for a 16-lot subdivision. Now, what we recommend is this: that the State of Department of Health revisit this rule change and instead discuss alternatives that will address the concerns raised by owners, farmers, and developers. And furthermore, we ask the department to also consider a phased conversion based on environmental impact with, say, high, moderate, low risk, and look at low interest loans tax credits like those provided for PV systems. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Richard Onishi.
Good morning. My name is Richard Onishi. I'm a state representative from the 3rd District at the Big Island. The Big Island representatives, who I am here to represent, have grave concern regarding some of the issues that have already been brought up. We also are very concerned that in this particular public hearing, there was no opportunity for people from the west side of the Big Island to go to a location on the west side for the hearing, and there was only a location in Hilo. We also noticed that the department has decided to schedule informational hearings on the neighbor islands in Kona and in Hilo. And we are concerned that they are only informational hearings, knowing the cost and expense of travel, or even for the people from Kona trying to get to Hilo. We feel that we are urging the department to consider, instead of having informational hearings on the neighbor islands, actually to have public hearings so people can come to testify at those locations in regards to this important issue. So that is the position of the House representatives from the Big Island, and we wanted to convey that to the department.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Michael Gibson.
My name is Michael Gibson. I am an attorney. I am a resident of Hilo on the Big Island, and I am a trustee of the Parker Ranch. One of the items that I wanted to discuss, which hasn't been addressed by some of the other speakers, they've talked about the notice, they've talked about the point of sale. Parker Ranch has one of these sewage treatment plants, and it serves our hospital, it serves two shopping centers, and a couple hundred homes. And unfortunately, notwithstanding the fact that we have a staff and we have consultants, we are not in compliance, and we have not been in compliance for some time. And my concern is, among some of these other concerns, that to have a 16-lot subdivision have a sewage treatment plant is going to be an unrealistic burden for people in communities like that. And so for those reasons, plus the other reasons, we would request that the proposed changes be rejected. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sean O'Keefe. Yeah. Okay.
Testify in my professional role.
Okay, so I'm gonna move your line up then. Okay, go ahead.
So again, I'm Sean O'Keefe. I'm Director of Environmental Affairs for Alexander Development. And we're not going to weigh in on the cesspool issue. I think that's going to be adequately covered by everyone else. But I do want to reiterate a point that was made earlier, that it is EPA's position that adequately managed decentralized wastewater systems are both cost-effective and long-term option for meeting public health and water quality goals, particularly in less densely populated areas. That comes from the report that EPA was asked to provide to Congress on the issue of decentralized wastewater systems, which includes individual wastewater systems. I'm assuming that's still EPA's position, and I think it should be the Department of Health's position. We certainly understand the need to address water quality impacts from individual wastewater systems where they exist. I think when you look at the numbers in terms of how many cesspools there are in the state, it is kind of staggering, and I think it is important that we look at where those may be contributing to water quality impairment, where they're not contributing to water quality impairment or endangering drinking water sources or providing other impacts, environmental impacts. Perhaps they don't need to be banned, but that also goes for septic systems, and the new proposed restrictions on septic systems is the one that we're most concerned about. Specifically, the limitation on development to 15 single-family residential dwelling units. Current limit for developments that are allowed to utilize individual wastewater systems is 50, and that's being decreased down to 15. I'm less concerned about that change than I am about the elimination of an exception to that requirement for developments consisting of one dwelling unit per acre or greater. There you're talking about very low density developments, normally in agricultural areas. In some cases, you're talking about 2-lot parcels, which may or may not have 2 dwellings on it. In some cases, an ohana will be built, in some cases it won't. So in some cases, you're going to have a single dwelling on 2 acres. In other cases, you're going to have 2 dwellings, but you're still going to have 1 dwelling per acre. And we really don't see any reason for that to be removed. That is extremely low density development. We don't see any indication that development at that level is going to cause water quality impacts, particularly when what you're installing is a septic system, not a cesspool. Septic systems provide, as EPA recognizes, very good treatment of wastewater. And I think when you look at the Department of Health's study that they're using to as the basis for a lot of these changes, you can see that even in areas where there are very high densities of individual wastewater systems, in a lot of cases, particularly on Maui, the risk posed by those systems is extremely low. So again, we should be focusing our efforts on areas where these systems are not operating properly or are posing risks, and not have these blanket prohibitions or limitations on systems that are properly functioning and are doing their job. The cost of putting in a wastewater treatment plant, whether it's a 15-lot subdivision, a 20-lot subdivision, whatever it is excessive. Some of these developments are not going to occur because of that additional cost. When you look at large ag subdivisions, large lot ag subdivisions, where you're looking at an acre or 2 acres, add in the additional cost of the infrastructure to get the wastewater to the sewage treatment plant. And it's significantly more expensive to put in that infrastructure when you've got these widely spaced dwelling units than it is in areas where development is more concentrated. So we'd like to see that 1 acre lot exception retained so that these developments in agricultural area can proceed without unnecessary additional costs.
Okay, thank you. That's all the people who indicated they wanted to give oral testimony on Oahu, but there were more hands than that. Oh, there's another sheet too. Okay. Okay, Anthony Alto.
Thanks very much.
Okay, here, okay, yeah, we're holding folks to 3 minutes on the testimony. We've got a lot on the outer islands in particular who want to testify, so.
Well, thanks very much. I just got here, so I may be repeating some of the stuff that's been said before.
Okay, yeah, and if you're turning in written testimony, also that, so just hit the high points of written testimony.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm the chair of the Oahu group of the Sierra Club, and I'm testifying on their behalf. We commend the department for taking this step. We think it's actually a minimum. We think it's a great step in the right direction. We know that the department in the past has tried to put together a financing mechanism so that people would have access to low-cost loans to be able to do these kinds of improvements. Wasn't successful at the legislature. We would urge you to try again. We would be there to testify in support and try and get that done, because we don't see that homeowners should be penalized for having to make these improvements, but on the other hand, we do think that they are essential. Our concern is in fact that the rules don't go far enough. We think that they continue to treat wastewater as a nuisance rather than as a resource. We are very concerned about our fresh drinking water. We know that as much as a third, depending on the age of fixtures in most homes, up to a third of the fresh water used in the home is literally flushed down the toilet. And we would like to see the department start to embrace some of the new technology, and particularly the 2012 International Plumbing Code, which allows for reuse of grey water to flush toilets. We think that's a bigger mission. More than 100 million gallons of water a day flushed on Oahu alone, flushed into the ocean. That water should be being used to recharge our aquifers, and the amount of water that is required for treatment should be reduced. And so one of the things that we think is a big gap in the rules is that we don't see enough of an effort to accommodate aerobic treatment units. We know that there are at least 2 manufacturers that have been negotiating with the department to start using their systems, installing their systems in replacement of cesspools. We think that's a big gap. And as I say, we note that the latest version of the plumbing code, the International Plumbing Code of 2012, specifically codifies how we can use grey water to flush toilets. And those have already been adopted by other states across the country. We don't like the idea that a state like Georgia might be considered more progressive than Hawaii. And so we would very much urge you to go a further step. In other words, we think by and large good, but a little bit timid, and could you go further, please?
Okay, thank you very much for your testimony. Was there anyone else on Oahu? Okay. Why don't you, I think you were here first, so why don't you? Okay, your name is?
My name is Lauren Roth-Van I'm representing the U.S. Green Building Code Council, Hawaii. I'm also the founding president of Roth Ecological Design firm that focuses.
Okay, we've got your name here. Okay, go ahead, thanks.
I'm just going to make it real short. I conclude as well with what Anthony just said. We believe that we're in support generally of moving the Hawaii administrative rules forward to remove the use of cesspools. It's embarrassing that we are the last state in the country that actually is still constructing these things on certain Hawaii County, for example. And we find that we agree that it also doesn't go far enough, because we think that there's certain areas where there's more damage caused by the cesspools, including along the coast and near waterways. For example, in Kapo'o, they did MIT guy did a study where he flushed the toilet, and they actually had a septic tank leach field where it went into the septic tank, but during high tide, the water went right out in 5 minutes. So in these situations, even a septic tank leach field isn't appropriate, We find that there should be incentives to move these communities that are in these areas of higher impact or negative impact to our coastal resources or our waterways, that they actually get incentivized to move forward to secondary treatment systems that are now readily available. And as Anthony mentioned regarding the new plumbing codes that are going to be moving forward, the state State Water Conservation Plan and some other larger initiatives are trying to move the state to do more reclaimed water, water reuse projects. And we find that it is a burden on the homeowners. We agree we would support another effort through the legislative process to provide low interest loans and incentives for folks to get off of these archaic systems. So again, we support the effort. We also wanted to move further.
Okay, thank you. Was there someone else in the? No?
I never worked in Colin, but I wasn't sure what that is.
Okay, well, why don't you go ahead since you're standing? We'll get you next, and then, okay.
Thank you, sir. Shannon Olivado on behalf of the General Contractors Association. Our letter will be turned down and we're requesting a deferral of adoption of these rules. But we're sensitive and we commend the Department of Health for proposing these. I think they're premature. As many as stated before, there was no discussion with stakeholders, affected landowners, agricultural farm owners. I think what we're concerned about is whether or not these administrative rules and proposed regulations may exceed the scope of the statutory enactment that allowed this. So I think those types of discussions need to be rethought by the department and just try to see whether or not we could consider incentives rather than punitive measures in these rules in going forward. I think our testimony includes much of the detail, but I just wanted to comment on Ms. Rothvenu's comment about that it's an embarrassment that our state is still one of the states that uses cesspools, but I think we must remain sensitive to especially our rural neighborhoods and our neighbor islands that access to a sewer line is not that easy. I mean, sometimes it's miles. So I think in considering these administrative rules and regulations, the department must continue to remain sensitive to our rural communities and communities that may not have access. And I think what the rules also present is a lot of discretion for the Director of Health. We saw a provision in here that would allow the Department of Health to have discretion in approving an additional bedroom to a home. For the Director of Health to now have a say in whether a wastewater treatment facility or a wastewater treatment for a single home needs to be upgraded because of an additional bedroom, that's a lot of discretion that I think should be relooked at and really considered in how this would be impacting not only the personal residents or business homeowners, but also agricultural farm landowners.
Thank you.
For those reasons, we request a deferral.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Name, please.
My name is Michael Cummings.
Okay.
I'm going to first start off by saying that I haven't done extensive research as far as the revisions proposed. So I'll give you guys a background as why I'm here and explain myself a little more. My name is Michael Cummings. I'm a lifelong resident of Hawaii, born and raised on the island of Hawaii. My message today is that I would like to convey to potential skeptics and naysayers that the proposed revisions is to first listen, understand the different concerns that various stakeholders have, next get involved and provide solutions that will benefit everyone, not just yourself, and finally understand that there is no silver bullet that will address every problem related to this issue. Having said that, I'm going to give you a little bit about my background. Went to University of Hawaii, got my BS and MS there in civil and environmental engineering. I conducted research in the investigation of decentralized wastewater systems on the islands of Hawaii, Oahu, Molokai, Maui, and Hawaii Island. So yes, I do understand that there is not really such a homogeneous situation here. It varies throughout the different islands. During that time, I visited over 500 different sites around the state. So just gonna share some experiences that I have.
Okay, but we need to keep it on 3 minutes.
Yeah,
you're mostly there. So.
Okay. I'm gonna just talk about how this relates to public safety, and I'll just end it there. On one of my site visits to the historic sugar mill town of Hilo Oct. I witnessed children playing in the dirt just outside of an old plantation house and just a few feet away from them was an overflowing cesspool. Granted, it was on a sunny day. There was no rain whatsoever. Every time the toilet was flushed and every time a faucet was opened, the raw sewage from the cesspool would surface. Okay, so fortunately, I was there to provide recommendations and alert residents of the hidden dangers that the waterborne diseases may pose, not only to those kids, but others in that area. So I do realize I'm going over time, but I just say in closing that the main reason I'm here today to speak on this matter was to share my experiences. Obviously, I couldn't go over all of them. I'll submit it in my written testimony. And if you guys have any questions on this matter, please discuss it with me. Or even if you just disagree with stuff, which I did not get to mention in here that I'm sure people would disagree with. Yeah, I mean, I'm open to any sort of discussion after this meeting at a future time. So I'd like to wrap up by saying Hilo and thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on Oahu? I think we've done everybody. Okay. Your name, please. Did you sign in?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
My name is Tony Anderson. I'm with Hawaii Rural Water Association. We're an association we work with a lot of public water utilities and water and wastewater utilities throughout the state. And this issue is extremely important. Yes, we totally support this. I don't think that it's actually going far enough. We do need to stop putting in cesspools in the state. There's lots of risks to drinking water. I'm a source water protection specialist. I write source water protection plans, working on plans and within areas of influence of drinking water well. Some of those areas, there are thousands of cesspools in these areas, and this can cause all kinds of diseases and concerns. Yes, so we understand that there are some financial impacts, but there are ways to address it. There is funding out there to address the financial impacts of this, but this absolutely needs to move forward. This is a great first step, and a lot more needs to be done to eliminate the cesspools throughout the state.
Thank you. Okay, that was all the hands I saw from Oahu, so let's go to the outer islands again. We have quite a few folks in both Hilo and Maui. Why don't we, let's start at Hilo. Let's do 3 people at Hilo, 3 people at Maui, 3 back to Hilo until we're done. Okay? Let's start at Hilo, please.
Our first speaker is Robert Williams.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, go ahead.
There's a microphone right in front of you.
This is a microphone here?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay. Dear members of the wastewater branch, after the State Department of Health declared in 1999 that new cesspools in Hawaii would be prohibited after December 31st, 1999, the recent announcement that the Department of Health was going to follow through and ban future cesspools in 2015 was good news for our environment. I think that most reasonable people would agree that sewers or septic systems are preferable to cesspools. However, the proposed method of implementation leaves considerable room for improvement. According to your figures, there are an estimated 90,000 cesspools in the state of Hawaii. While some of these cesspools were constructed without permits, the vast majority of homeowners faithfully relied on government regulations and built cesspools that were approved by the Department of Health. In fact, many homeowners since the proclamation in 1999 have built cesspools approved by the Department of Health. Now in 2014, the Department of Health has determined that these cesspools are quote, an outmoded 15th century technology, and the homeowner should solely be responsible for financing the Department of Health's mistakes. So what will the cost of retrofitting 90,000 cesspools? At an average price of $10,000 per new septic system, The Department of Health is expecting the public to accept the total burden of $900 million to retrofit our 15th century technology to septic. Something seems wrong with this methodology. Since the government is by the people and for the people, why doesn't the funding come from the general fund, as the benefits for switching to septic systems inures to the entire population, not just the homeowners with cesspools? How in good faith can we trust a government when you follow the rules and regulations and get a $900 million bill? There has to be a better proposal than taxing homeowners and or buyers $10,000 at the time of sale. Another big problem with the proposed revised administrative rules is reducing the number of lots you can create in subdivisions to 15 from 50 without providing private sewage treatment plants. This may work for Oahu, where public sewer lines are widely available, but for the neighbor islands, sewer lines are very limited. A Hilo civil engineer told me that the cost for private sewage treatment plant for a 66-lot subdivision, 10,000 square foot lots he was designing, would be approximately $1.2 to $1.5 million. The collection lines and laterals would be another $1.2 million. The cost to locate the plant on 2 acres, which equals 9 lots, $140,000 each, would be another $1.26 million. All total, the cost would be approximately $3,660,000 for 66 lots, or $55,000 per lot. When you add that in the land purchase, in this example, $25,000 a lot, roads, water lines, facility charge, power lines, engineering, survey, and interest at another $70,000 per lot, the total cost per lot of $150,000 can easily exceed the sales price minus selling expenses. And that is for a 60.
Wrap it up, please.
I got one paragraph left. I'm almost done. And that is for a 66-lot subdivision that will never be completed. If you can't make a profit with 66 lots, how is it going to be possible with 16 lots? What is going to happen is the Department of Health is going to make all projects over 15 lots unfeasible unless they're designed for the very rich who can afford to spend $1 million per lot. We would hope that going forward that the Department of Health can come up with a better solution that would include some kind of tax incentives, financing, or way that some of these things can be implemented, and the reduction to 15 lots would be eliminated. Thank you.
Thank you. Next Hilo person.
Art Phillips.
Good morning. My name is Hartley Phillips, and I'm the president of the Kapoho Kai Water Association. We buy water from the county and resell it to subscribers in our area. Our area is Kapoho Vacation Land, and it's at sea level. We found that we were having negative impacts on our tide pools and groundwater because of a significant portion of our community having cesspools. And so in 2011, we did a lot of what you're proposing. We set up a requirement that when properties exchange hands, that the upgrades to current state standards for new construction had to be done. Since then, we've had about 15 people or 15 properties upgrade, and we're hoping to continue this process. A neighboring community of the same size as ours did not have that kind of bylaw change and have had only 4 upgrades over the same time period. We're pleased that the Department of Health is proposing these upgrades on sale of residences. It's been successful in our community and had resulted in people who have upgraded have had a positive real estate impact in that they had a more quality property to sell. One thing that your proposal will be doing that's will go beyond what we have is we only can affect the people who buy water from us. whereas yours will apply to everybody, whether they have catchment or not. We're pleased with that. Another thing we're pleased about is that our process is the same as yours, which is 6 months upgrade. The one thing that we saw that you were lengthening the time from 1 year to 5 years for upgrades on changing of the buildings, like if add a bedroom or something. We feel that you should maintain it being 1 year or even less if someone upgrades. We think
Okay, could you please finish up?
Okay, mahalo for your time.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
How's that?
Next person.
Barbara Bell, please.
Hello?
But please make sure you're putting the rest of it in your written testimony, though. Thank you.
You've got it.
My name is Barbara Bell, and I am in support of the changes to the Department of Health admin rules that are proposed today. I will be very brief and submit written statements. I do support these solutions for it's the tragedy of the commons, right? Obviously, we do not need any new cesspools. The money difference on new construction is quite minimal between a cesspool and a septic tank, so that to me is a non-issue. In my subdivision, which is right next door to where Hart Phillips lives, we tried voluntary upgrades. It didn't work very well. Few people did the right thing, but it needs to be mandated. A date certain for upgrades might work rather than a point of sale, but you're going to have to give some kind of rebates or tax incentives. Obviously, you could get into a situation where you might have to sell your house if you can't do an upgrade. So if the realtors have a better solution and they think a date certain is a better solution, it could happen faster, but the money is a bigger problem, I think. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. We had a little subcommittee. I've spent years on trying to get Kapoho area upgraded because, as Hart says, we are at sea level. And I thought the point of sale was really the best solution. But there are many deals to work out, so I'm volunteering. I noticed in your rules there's an option for a County Wastewater Advisory Committee, should our mayor decide to do that. Since we have by far the largest amount, I would be happy to serve on that committee. Aloha.
Thank you for your testimony. Okay, let's go to Maui for 3 people. Maui?
Yeah, we're here. Aloha, my name is Lawrence Carnicelli. I would define myself as an environmental activist, and I'm also a realtor. The part that I'm going to submit written testimony, but just to highlight it right now, I'm all for the concept of going from cesspool to septic systems. However, to go point of sale, I think there's a lot of unintended consequences. Some people have hit on it. One of which here on Maui County, it's going to cost roughly $15,000 for people to do so. To do that at a point of sale doesn't make any sense, because what the unintended consequences will happen is that lenders won't be able to lend on those properties because of testimony that's already been submitted here today. But the other part of it is when we add, say, 100 to 150 new sales here on Maui alone, it takes 6 months to retrofit something as it is now. If we add another 100, 150 people wanting to do that, there's no way it's going to take 6 months, and there's no way that it's going to be $15,000 anymore. It's just simple supply and demand. The costs are going to go up. The other part is the people that are going to be most affected by this are going to be affordable houses and our local families. There are many, many lots here on Maui that simply don't have the square footage to put a septic system on there. And the cost for those are roughly going to be about $30,000 right now is what I've been quoted. That's going to go over the top as well. So essentially going the point of sale route doesn't accomplish really what the Department of Health wants to do, and that is to get rid of these things. I agree with that. I think that we need to move on to newer technology. However, the point of sale way of going about it isn't really going to solve the actual issue that we have, and I'll submit the rest of my testimony written.
Thank you. Next, Melanie.
Hi, my name is Howard Hanzawa. I represent Kanapali Land Management Corp. For KLMC. We have involved the community of West Maui in the planning of our projects for 15 years. We have monthly and bi-monthly meetings. Any member of the community is invited who have concerns with the overall planning of West Maui. We have 3 planned subdivisions which will be affected by the clause which is being proposed to be changed for individual wastewater systems, which would reduce the number of lots from 50 to 15, and also eliminate the clause which states that consisting of 1 dwelling unit per acre or greater. And we've had these subdivisions in the planning stage for many years. We've involved countless hours of discussion with community stakeholders and government officials, and we have contracted with planners, surveyors, engineers, and architects, as well as marketing people to develop these subdivision plans and infrastructure plans. The Department of Health has reviewed and commented and on the plans, subdivision plans, and the County of Maui has issued preliminary subdivision approval. It will not pencil out if these changes are made. The lands, which is our maka land, would have to be urbanized to make it profitable. We don't want to do that. The community does not want to do that. We request that this provision be looked at and really it's going to cause irreparable harm to KLMC, and really the community is going to be impacted also. So I will submit written testimony on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, hello, my name is Michael Trottle. I'm a resident of Kihei. I'm also a realtor with the Realtors Association of Maui. You've heard a lot of the comments, and the main point that I wanted to stress here is the removal of that point of sale provision in these changes. Also, what is being proposed as is a good thing in trying to eliminate cesspools that are problem. I don't think it looks at that. I don't think this proposal looks at those that are problematic. I think by using this point of sale, it's not getting to where you want to be, and it's going to cause a lot of distress for not only homeowners and business people, but it's also going to affect. We've been trying to get affordable housing. Maui has been behind trying to get affordable housing. This will be just another nail in the coffin to that, and I think it needs to be looked at in that respect. I will submit written testimony in more detail, but I think that point has to be really, you have to hear that point about how it's going to affect our affordable housing. We've been trying, and other groups and nonprofits have been trying to provide these kind of houses. Developers just can't do it under the conditions that we have here now, and this will just add another layer of those conditions which make it impossible to build affordable homes. So I will submit my written testimony, and I thank you for the opportunity just to bring up these points this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's go back to Hilo for 3.
Okay. Our next speaker is Joe Clarkson.
I guess I don't have to move. I just want to point out something that I don't think has been discussed, and that is that although I admit that cesspools or any on-site treatment system can cause problems in the wrong location. Cesspools have been used successfully, generally speaking, in Hawaii for decades, if not centuries. And here, all of a sudden, the Department of Health, after approving tens of thousands of these systems, is saying that every cesspool in the state of Hawaii needs to be replaced, implying that every cesspool in the state of Hawaii is a threat to public health, has failed, needs to be replaced with some other method. Clearly, that cannot be true. I live in Hamakua. I live at an elevation of 2,300 feet in deep soil. I live in a very rural community with housing densities of one house for 10 or 15 acres. The land is zoned Ag 5. And now you're telling all of us who live there that the systems that we put in with your Department of Health approval need to be replaced at our expense or our buyer's expense because they have failed. And you have given absolutely no evidence that every cesspool in the state of Hawaii needs to be replaced. Absolutely none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Karen Clarkson.
I believe that proposed rule change requiring conversion of cesspools to septics, replacement, within 180 days of sale is completely unreasonable.
Could somebody move the microphone a little closer to the speaker? I'm having a hard time.
Sorry. I believe that rule change regarding replacement of cesspools with septic systems within 180 days of the sale is unreasonable. It's going to seriously impact sales of properties. What buyer is going to buy a property with a cesspool? The seller may have to install a septic system prior to even being able to put his property on the market. Lenders may refuse to issue loans otherwise. Where is the compensation to property owners of the loss of value or marketability of their properties? Where is the compensation to a property owner for having to install a septic system? Is that what we used to call condemnation or government taking, where you're basically condemning a property? The government is supposed to reimburse you for that. I think if the health department wants to improve, modernize wastewater systems, the government should pay for it. There's just it's just not fair to impose that on property owners. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker, Kim White? No. Okay, and then Roger Meeker?
Hi, my name is Roger Meeker. I've been a real estate attorney for the past 35 years or so. I've worked with a lot of realtors that I have huge respect for. But my comments are, I'm in disagreement with a lot of what you're hearing today. I believe, first, I'd just like to say that I think I applaud the department for moving forward with what they're trying to do. I'd like to see incentives as well as mandates. I think perhaps, as was mentioned before, like a tax credit or some sort of a tax incentive to maybe encourage people to decommission cesspools would be great. But a couple of points I did want to touch on. We're hearing that this is going to create a problem with financing and lending and all this sort of thing. I spoke at length with the president of one of Hawaii's largest mortgage loan brokers. He stated confidently that the proposed rules would not present any undue difficulties for lenders from either a foreclosure or lending perspective, pointing out that the cost was relatively small compared to the typical size of a mortgage. He also observed that the point of sale was actually an ideal time to fund conversions since money was available. Regarding the point of sale, which I think is the most important point of what's being proposed here by the department, there is absolutely a nexus between the proposed point of sale requirement and the goal of reducing the number of cesspools. The whole rationale behind the proposal is to come up with a non-draconian, workable mechanism for slowly transitioning out of old cesspools and into modern wastewater systems. The point of sale trigger does exactly that. It focuses on a moment in time when money is moving across the table from a buyer to a seller, with mortgage financing typically playing a large role. What better time to factor in the cost of converting an old cesspool? The only other effective approach would be to simply provide a drop-dead date before which time all cesspools would have to be converted, much like was done with the gang cesspool issue a number of years ago. But the problem with that is people may not have the money as the date approaches. The point of sale trigger offers the perfect moment in time when money is in fact in play and can be factored into the purchase and sale negotiations, appropriately budgeted for and financed. It's so far beyond the time when the state of Hawaii needs to get into the 20th century here. And I speak correctly when I say 20th century. The Clean Water Act and the Safe Water Drinking Act were passed 40 years ago. Other states have somehow managed to do this transition. We're the only state in the country that still allows cesspools. Other states have lots of rural areas, and they have figured out a way to deal with this. And I think, obviously, there need to be some tweaks and whatnot, but this is a good start, and I think hopefully we'll end up with a good result. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's three.
Okay, let's go back to Maui.
Good morning. My name is Sandra Amaral Kraus. I'm the principal broker and owner of Ainawai Properties on the island of Maui. I am a native to the island of Maui. I have many relatives whose homes are in Makawao. We have over 13,000 cesspool homeowners, most of which are upcountry in Makawao and Iao Valley and in Waihe'e. And for the island of Maui, these are the older communities. This is where our elderly relatives live. For them to be burdened with having to make this transition would be, I would think, at this time unfair without the help of the state and the federal government. They complied with the rules of yesterday, and things change. And I applaud you for taking the bull by the horns, as my uncles and aunties up there would say, and doing something about it. But I believe that, like many of the previous testifiers, I do believe that what we need is the small landowners, the family owners, the large landowners on the island of Maui, Molokai, Lanai, as well as on the island of Hawaii. Because what you're doing is you're affecting the livelihood of no, it's not 3 minutes yet, but thanks for checking. You go, but
Actually, my watch had fallen, and I wanted to make sure I was still singing it, but go ahead, please.
Okay, aloha. But
Hey, you're only halfway through, actually, so go ahead.
You go. Okay. Now, my firm deals predominantly with first-time home buyers. And when an older home comes into play on the market, we're privileged to be able to buy it. You know, and for those that the 50 to the 15 units as well, let's hear. The 15 units that triggers with the conversion is small family subdivision. You are not talking about the Wailea 670, the Ka'anapali, or the big subdivisions that occur. So again, you are triggering your grandparents, my elder aunties and uncles, of which I don't think is your intent. So now that I gave you the problem, this is some of the solutions. I would suggest that first of all, you bring it back to the table and you deal with and work with those that will suffer this repercussions. And it will be, again, large landowners, small landowners. And another thing is, sir, I honestly do believe that my county is very capable of looking after our cesspools. I humbly ask that you bring this back to home base. The state has been our godfather for many years.
Okay, could you please finish up now? Okay, thanks. And also, the camera there is not focused on the speaker. If you could please move the camera over.
Okay. am so sorry, sir. This Portuguese girl was lazy, so I just moved the mic. Okay, can you see me now?
Yes. But please wrap it up, though. Please wrap it up, thank you.
Okay, you took my 2 minutes. Okay, basically, to wrap it up, sir, and sum it up, okay? There's certain things. Number one, bring it back to home rule. The island of Hawaii politicians know what's good for them. Maui, we are actively engaged with our political bodies here. They are very capable, as is Oahu. And the problem for us is that, sir, we cannot be compared, Hawaii, to any other state, because we are not any other state. We take care of our elderly, and so they hang on to the land. We should be able to subdivide our lands that has been in our families for hundreds of years without being impacted with unreasonable costs. Solution, number one, tax incentive. Solution, number two, work with those that it will affect. And solution number three, your board of realtors throughout the state is a valuable source. Work through them. Your politicians in each county is a valuable source. I will submit written testimony, but the things that I think that is powerful for you to hear, number one, the first-time home buyers, number two, the 15 to 50, from 50 to 15. Thank you, mahalo.
Thank you. And if the next speaker could go to the same chair, thank you.
Denver's always a hard act to follow. My name's David De Leon. I'm representing the Realtors Association of Maui. Thank you for this opportunity to put our input into this. I have a 2-page testimony, which I will reduce as quickly as I can here. The Realtors Association of Maui wishes to go on record in support of the intent of the proposed amendments, but finds that it must oppose the proposal as currently written. Given the magnitude of what is proposed, its severe impacts on property rights, and the availability of affordable housing in rural Hawaii, our association feels that it must state for the record that this proposal is poorly developed, did not include stakeholders in its development, and as a result, will not produce the desired effect. The proposal's chief methodology is the addition of a point of sale requirement that has no rational nexus to the problem being addressed. Worse, this random targeting of resources will not fix the problem in the foreseeable future. Cesspools that are working well will be converted because the owners want to sell. Cesspools that are not working well will not be converted if their owners choose not to sell. Using that random approach, instead of targeting actual problem areas, it will take generations to resolve the pollution problem that the department cites. So I'm going to skip to one major. I have a series of bullet points. I'm going to focus on one. And that is,
please submit your written testimony, of course, too. So.
Yes, I will do that. There is no exception offered in this proposal for properties where it's impossible to convert because of either a lack of space or access to create a septic system. Does that mean that the owners actually lose their right to sell? This is a major property right issue here. We're taking away a right to sell if they have no exception and they cannot do what is required. So that needs to be addressed, and it cannot be this foot of slide. Case in point, the provost of Maui Community College lives on a house in Kula with a cesspool. The house is built up on poles over a gulch that's made up of blue rock. They've actually made an analysis to try to see if they could get a septic system in there. It's not possible. Now, we tell them he cannot sell his house. The Realtors Association of Maui believes that the best outcome of this process would be to treat it as a first step. The need for action on the public health issues being articulated by the department are well intended, and we do hear you. Now it's time for the department to actually hear the communities. Take the information, this information, and develop a rule that is both rational and effective. One that includes input from the stakeholders. We believe such a rule would focus our state's limited resources on those communities with real wastewater-related public health problems. And at a bare minimum, there needs to be an exception for the properties where conversions are not possible. The proposal as written suffers from a lack of input from the affected communities and will have severe negative impacts on property rights of existing property owners and the affordability of rural housing. Its methodology is too random to have a significant positive impact on pollution over the next decade and may require a generation to achieve its desired goal. The burden of proposed rule amendment places on Hawaii's rural community is not justified by the anticipated net outcome. For these reasons, the Realtors Association of Maui opposes the proposal and respectfully requests that it be withdrawn.
Mahalo, thank you for your testimony.
And the person is Jim.
My name is Jim McLemore. I lived here for 45 years on Maui, most of the time up country. I'm not a great public speaker, so I'll try to make this short. I'm all for good health. Nothing wrong with good health. I do believe that if you want to talk about unhealthy issues besides cesspool, you should fix my drinking water country so I don't have rust coming out of the pipes. That I drink every day, and most people up country, uses filters. But that's, I guess, a whole nother issue that the state can fix. I bought all my properties, and I'm retired now, a building contractor for 25 years, under the rules of the Hawaii state statutes. And now, if the Hawaii state wants this changed, they want to bring a sewer line up to my house, not a problem, I'll hook right up to it. But I should have to pay for that because I played by the rules, as many people in this room played by the rules. It is virtually impossible for some, as a previous speaker talked about, getting cesspools in. I don't know what they'll do. I mean, hopefully you won't say they can't sell their house, but it's physically impossible. Realize that. As far as 180 days, is that what it is? There's probably 4 companies on Maui that does cesspool to septic tanks. And I don't even know how I think it used to be about $10,000 when I retired. I'm sure it's up to $20,000. I'm just throwing numbers out there. But if you make this rule, if you own a cesspool septic company, where would your prices go? Through the roof. And as a retired person, I'm just supposed to sit there and go, okay, well, whatever you want to charge, or go out there and dig it myself, I guess. You really need to think this through because I'm 2,500 Ocean, and I don't think my cesspool is contaminating anything. I mean, you can come up and test it, but if you live by a river, I can see the point. But, if the state wants to fix this, please fix my drinking water first, because that affects me every day. I drink water, and then there's an out, and then worry about it. So I'll submit written testimony, but there's thousands of people, especially in Maui, that cannot pay for this. And to say I can't sell my house because the owner won't buy it is not fair. Even though I'm totally for clean water, don't get me wrong. So we need to rethink this and how we do it, especially in 180 days. What happens if 180 days comes by and it's not done yet? The sale doesn't close, or the buyer walks away, or I'm not going to worry about that because I don't plan to sell my house anyway. If you want to get this changed, then let's get it changed, but let's talk about it first instead of 3 weeks ago or a month ago. This comes up after what, 40 years, it all of a sudden comes up out of nowhere. So anyway, I've talked long enough, but
okay. Thank you.
You really need to take this.
Thank you for your time. Okay. Let's go to Hilo again.
Okay. Next speaker is Susan Lee Loy.
Hi, my name is Susan Leloy. I am currently the president for the Hawaii Island Realtors, and I am also a realtor, but today I'm speaking to you as a private citizen. We will be submitting written testimony for our association, but that will come in by the 17th of October. So I'd like to thank you for giving me a brief moment to speak concerning the proposed changes. As I'm sure you are well aware, the Big Island currently has approximately 50,000 cesspools. While the requirement to change over to septic tanks has merit, I believe there needs to be some additional research prior to enacting this change. While the proposed requirement for the changes to occur no later than 180 days after ownership transfers, folks are going to be in a world of trouble as there's just not enough septic tank companies or engineers to accommodate the change, nor are there sewer systems here on the Big Island to hook up to if that were the case. I'm thinking strictly as a private citizen who finds that should a homeowner need to sell his or her home or simply to change title to family members, how can they accomplish this feat? So many people continue to be upside down and simply are unable to make this type of change. There may not be the necessary money available to a family to do this. What if the land is such that there is not room to install a septic tank? What position does that put that owner in? Are they now not able to sell? I am sure many people will speak of the extreme hardship this will place on a homeowner as the way of history here on the Big Island. I agree that the gradual changeover is a good idea, but additional research needs to occur. We need to look at this in a more rational and practical way. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, please.
Bill Moore. After Bill is Jackie.
I appreciate it. My name is Bill Moore. I'm speaking on behalf of, actually I've submitted written testimony on behalf of Kohala Ranch Development Corporation, speaking to that testimony as well as an individual. First of all, appreciate the information meeting. I understand that is when we can actually ask questions about this after the public hearing is closed. I think this is completely upside down in terms of the process, the lack of involvement. They talked about lack of involvement of stakeholders. I understand the need for cesspools. Really my concern is the impact, my professional concern is the impact of that change in the development rules on 15-lot subdivisions, on ag lots. We have a lot of large lot developments here, and the cost of putting in a wastewater treatment plant for that is just incredible. Also want to speak to some of the cesspool rules. There were 3 people that spoke in favor of these rules, all live in a sensitive area. I'm one of those impacted by it. I have just agreed to put in a septic system in that area and absolutely support it in those sensitive areas. But this is not a one-size-fits-all. And to focus on have a single rule to try to encompass this, to have this requirement in the coastal areas and areas by streams, absolutely think that makes sense. But to have it up in Upper Hamakua, where you have plantation communities with 2,000 square foot lots, good luck. So this, one size does not fit all. It needs to be sensitive, it needs to be thoughtful, and these rules are not. There is no justification for the changes in the rules. Basically, my understanding, based on information from the Department of Health, this is based on lack of potential loss of federal funding for cesspools. If that's the case, why are you impacting this rule change on development that has significant impact, affordable housing across the state? So really need to be thoughtful in how you approach this. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jackie Hoover.
Aloha, my name is Jackie Hoover, and I have the privilege of serving since 2005 as the president of Hawaii Leeward Planning Conference, and concurrently since 2008 as the executive director and chief operating officer for the Hawaii Island Economic Development Board. I've sent in multiple page testimony, but I've synthesized to 1 page for the purpose of this hearing. In seeking to express a sense of urgency and encourage the 200 plus members of HLPC and HIEDB to collectively and respectively consider the proposed amendments, I developed and shared with them a series of points that include, and are not limited to, my concerns about the extreme speed at which the Department of Health is proceeding without giving stakeholders time and opportunity for thoughtful consideration and collaboration. That despite the Department of Health acknowledging that there are 50,000 cesspools on Hawaii Island, which is the equivalent of all other cesspools combined throughout the rest of the state, not only is there no physical public hearing here on Hawaii Island, the televised access to the single Oahu-based public hearing is available in Hilo only, despite the fact that as an island we are approximately 4,028 miles in size, larger than all the other islands combined, so that this single on-island access point to the hearing presents more than a mere inconvenience to those of us who wish to participate. I traveled, for example, 1.5 hours to get here, and I know many people who could not take that time out of their day. The lack of connective tissue between the department's public notice that federal agencies have warned Hawaii needs to control pollution from on-site sewage disposal systems such as cesspools in order to continue to qualify for federal financial assistance, and the department's proposed revisions related to individual wastewater systems, in particular with respect to reducing size of developments that can utilize such systems from 50 to 15 dwelling or lots. The fact that the 4,028-mile large Hawaii Island is very much a rural environment and does not have the contiguous populated areas and infrastructured communities such as the more urbanized Oahu, so that your one-size-fits-all proposal, in fact, does not fit us. And the holding of after the fact, i.e. after the single official hearing, community information meetings, I find to be at best disingenuous and at worst a disrespectful and devious effort disguised to give the illusion of transparency and engagement with the public in much the same way as a vehicle hurtling recklessly down the highway at high speed slows down to give the illusion of compliance with posted speed limits when the driver's radar detector warns of the presence of highway patrol. Recently, I was traveling through another state in an unfamiliar area and utilized technology to assist me so that when I missed the correct turnoff, my electronic navigator chirped, recalculating, and designed an alternate route for me. I bring this up because typically at this point in my testimony, I would signal that I am drawing to a close by expressing sincere mahalo for the opportunity to speak on this matter of import. Today, however, I instead will use this time to strongly urge the department to recognize your attempt to take us on this ill-conceived forced journey with your many navigation errors and suggest strongly that you stop and recalculate. Thank you.
That's our three. I believe that's our three.
Who are the next three here?
Okay, so
The next three here are Paul Nash, Peter Fluser, Archer, and Edith Brown.
hello, my name is Donna Ting. I am a realtor. I have been a realtor on Maui for more than 40 years. I have approximately 100 rentals. Many of the rentals belong to elderly people that depend on them for their income in their golden years. And several of them brought me this paper saying, you gotta go, we can't speak, but you can. So I'm here to say that I'm all for, they're all for clean water, okay? The problem is that the wet blanket doesn't fit everybody. There are degrees of cesspools. There are cesspools that we've never had problems, and I mean, I've managed the house for over 40 years. We have cesspools in the lower areas where there are problems, okay? And they should do whatever they can to remedy that by putting in a septic system or something that will work, because clearly the old cesspool there doesn't work. The ones in Kula, however, some of the lots are small and some of the lots are blue rock, and there's no way that a septic system can be put in. And one of my clients who came to see me is a retired teacher. This property belonged to his father, who was a farmer, and he goes, so what, Auntie? Is my 2 cottages worth nothing now? I mean, I'm here to talk about the people and their needs. I've been getting, ever since this came in the paper, I've been getting phone calls from my clients.
Can you hold on to your comments for a minute? Oahu's lost the connection.
Doesn't mean the public hearing is over, it's maybe we went to lunch.
I just let them know,
I'm following the wrong rules.
We're gonna take a short break while we try to reconnect.
Maybe you may want to use that chain to recalculate things.
Can you give me an idea how long
What is your name? Okay, so you're on page 5. Oh,
Page
we
5.
just finished, right? You're starting page 2, so there are,
I think I'm going back.
could be up to like 20.
Thank you when I talk to you. Sorry about
Well, if it doesn't, they get it repaired quickly enough, Well, I think it's well intentioned, but to put the photo on the same level as Kua and Lehigh is dominating just, the whole thing that says, critical wastewater disposal area, the whole state, critical wastewater. It's typical of water. Yeah. Right. And they need to keep, people used to dump off batteries all the time. You can get 5 batteries. Once they fill it, they don't have to be anything. They did that a couple years ago. There's no more batteries. You can see sometimes on the right kind of conditions coming up out of the ground. And don't they think that the bacteria is killed? You know? So, it's the same thinking they made this Highway 130, you know, water is all in the ground. They don't want it. What they call an integrated approach where they would pay attention to the community. They just did whatever they did whatever they were going to
Sorry, we didn't talk.
I thought maybe those other people
Okay.
would know that whatever.
Oh, no, you know what, I did that.
Well, I just why don't. All right, okay, I'll be.
Go to the other side and they're putting
All right.
I set my own. Because I don't know.
If I really want to get cranked up, I'd say majority of the pros taking this one side's no parking fire, because they're not.
That is.
floated in.
But of course they won't, so.
Are you going to have to play?
There is something that you see.
It's already so expensive already. I just want to basically have for that's right. Anything by the water. Exactly. It's 4,000 feet. Not volcano. As well. Oh, yeah.
Zero elevation.
Yeah, and plus, right. Your cesspool.
It's not, it doesn't have enough,
The pond's been 1950. Yeah, 1977, I just my cousins, all my cousins.
Here's what I would propose doing. The people that write these rules up come up with their oval bar to get through our blue rock to make enough room for a septic tank.
That's why it's going to be excessive.
Because they're going to have to bond it. Well, if they can. I mean, you know, you're talking about homes that are existing. We're not talking about bonding before they build. We're talking about having to bond while the house is there. I mean, think about it. Not today. There's not.
And yet it's the same organization that allowed Kobe frogs, fire ants, stilling, stinging animal caterpillars, et cetera, et cetera, et we serenaded at night by the sound of the flying crickets. And now we're just inundated by the cookies.
We're not going to testify.
Oh, well.
What has happened to the coral? They're trying to prevent
Because I'm submitting my testimonies from the department and
I'm just gonna get the ribbon. I'll get the ribbon test.
I got two testimonies. I'm giving them the one I gave you. Just as a thing. Because we don't have evacuation, but we don't have water storage. And now they want to.
Yeah, so I think.
Where is your?
that's a good way to say it. But I'm not exactly the least, there's some major basic companies, and you guys do, and the few. I do love to. For the last series, beginning of September, before the all. I know.
Very good.
Less it's like.
Oh, no, they're giving them the prices and.
There's always something good that we have. I heard he was going to, but I didn't know. I'm letting well, I'm as soon as we know where it's going, which way, you know, bridges or.
Everything's a big ride.
Oh, the bombs, that should be
Well, no, they're Michigan.
And beach road, all of that should be, railroad, beach, that's why I'm so using my car.
I'm in my, I used to be in the city of Vermont, and I get married, so
This is Kathy.
Hi, nice to meet you. Oh, okay.
I have signs that recycling can choose what I want.
But if it's
Well, we're aware of the problem.
Oh, I'm sure. We have kids who remember that. And now, it's like when I buy or
here it is. You don't want to do this. Let me show you what our tax. You know, I'm serious. You don't go because I don't see it.
you see how it's just inside, maybe the engineers.
Yeah, and then there's Bill.
Well, I think what's happening is everything else stems from I mean, I can understand from this day forward. She just got it. And what if there's no then there should be another alternate. That's the part where they don't have to blow. The low goes to the property, 5,000 square feet. That's what I mean.
It's just not. I have found that somebody's building. And they should have to do, when you make everybody, that's still issuing your permit. So you're they're like, I should stop that. Just give me the
They would pull it down.
and my mom said, you know,
It's 1999.
Amazing.
that's what I mean, I'm glad you say that.
Yeah, I got that in my system.
I know, I was 4 years old.
They really want to open up a can of worms. How many subdivisions are HOAs? Yeah.
That's our lot of
2:30. He's thinking more conscious. And then.
Yeah.
Oh, that's all right. We got this. I mean, North Well, I'm here. I know what okay, I got another copy.
Your email address is
I'll talk to you next week. Okay, all right. Okay, yeah. I was walking. Are you there? No, I did that. No, where it is. I'm sure glad there. There's so much business. I can take just
Any interest?
Oh, I know. And that was sort of. That's what they said, that it's not happening, it's so slow. So it's raining on the front. I know. If you get worried, you gotta be. Has now moved ahead. Right, and that's also. They actually watched things. Oh, I understand. I've been real cool about this. And that was sort of like, the hot chocolate on the ice cream. When I was with some, and then we're doing that for the cups over here. Okay, but what I think was good. Where all goes under, I have a great place to relax. Yeah.
Because it's an existing subdivision. So we went to this whole issue with the land, wanted to hear what the lease
All right, so they've lost their internet connection. We're
Okay.
gonna resume using the Polycom over the telephone system rather than the video conference.
Okay.
So we'll let you know when they're
We
connected.
are lost now too?
No, but the Oahu, the building has no internet. They
Is
still have-
that, the building is what?
Is that legal?
Their building has no internet. I don't know if that's
If
legal or
you've
not.
lost video, can you go?
Can you continue to?
Can you continue?
I sent a text message asking that question.
To the AG?
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't, well, I don't know the AG.
So they can see us?
They cannot see us. They
Nobody
have
can
lost,
see us.
they have lost the video conferencing. They have no internet, they have no video conference. We're gonna resume using the Polycom.
Even though you noticed it as a video conference. Interesting.
Right, and therefore we came here for this as
For a
opposed
video
to the
conference. I could've
informational
done
meeting
it.
specifically so that we have. Why don't they fix it?
Fix the internet? I'm sure they're trying. I don't know, all I'm getting is text messages.
I'm sure they can work out the legal issues later, but since everybody is here, you'll send everybody back.
Well, no, I think I worked out the legal issue before we continue, because otherwise, if we violated chapter 92, then everything we say doesn't count after this. So that's the only question I have.
If it doesn't count, then they'll say it doesn't count, but then since everybody is here, I don't know, I think you better get to say what you want to.
I agree with you. I was limiting
Well, I think that you can then add that this, like the code meeting, instead of being informational, that we want it to be a hearing.
Well, you're still allowed to submit testimony at those meetings if you'll be excited.
Yeah, it just won't be video conferencing.
No, but there will be someone from the office here discussing it, so.
But that doesn't go as part of the official hearings of testimony. That's not testimony, those are comments.
Oh, well, but then you still have written
I
testimony.
mean, that was the only reason I was here.
It's not testimony, we checked that yesterday. It's comments. You can receive testimony at an official hearing.
But they'll be all weighted equally.
Okay, can we go ahead now?
We're almost set up. Dale Dial.
Are we gonna be able to hear the other people? Yeah.
So,
Did they stop their procedure?
They did, everybody else is on
Everybody
hold.
stopped.
Everybody's on hold.
when we lose,
Turn us all on the foundation now? Cool.
So everything is up and running.
It's outside, you want to wait till
Moving on this weekend instead of moving this on
We'll be at VHCA at 9 and.
Yeah, so the timing, because I do want to be there. If I can't be there, we're just, we got some vacation. So we're trying to get the house back.
Okay, sounds good. Send that over to me, and I'll go ahead and take that, just to double check and make sure that, you know, you've given what it is. And then, there, I'll get an attorney.
I paid for a hotel, I don't have any.
Still there, like, taking a lot, you used to have a house on it.
Maybe
Probably
I
about
could
$1,000
work
a flush. It's what you spend on it.
to my DAE program, so I have this video site in North Kohala, and somehow. Yeah, anyway, so it's like, it's not like. Doing.
Maureen?
Send it to me, I'm sorry.
I will. Kind of weasel out of it all.
Maybe I'll make this
I didn't want
He comes here so often, I
Well, I
never
also
get
think
together.
you need to do things in a step by
I
step.
feel like-
In other words, it's easier to
It goes
do
to
it black
Kona
and
though,
white,
right?
and it's less costly. But when you try to, what is the value, the environmental
But it is fun.
ecosystem?
I saw him in Marco
And
and
your
my
boundaries,
mom's.
trying to do it.
Yeah, I heard. I'm so glad they
I
showed
mean, I just gave that.
And Marco's got long hair.
The pool code.
Yeah.
Because that's the most, that's
And
where
what's the name?
we got the water and this, and we have to
Oh, yeah, I still recognize.
But it doesn't mean in White
I don't know if I
Valley,
recognize
and
everybody.
Chieftain Valley, where there's.
I saw Lauren Riddle at, mall.
Yeah, because that's her business.
Yeah, she's supposed to have a.
Yeah, I think so. And, I think also,
Well, I don't know, my house, my son said
Jane Short.
but I just.
Oh, I see.
Never dies.
But I do want to get some, I mean, I'm very much into, I'm not opposed to the
Okay, I don't have time.
I have all my exercise equipment in my.
between balance and private interest. It just means you have
They
something
look
in
like they
common.
have a.
You don't do that, but you don't say, the benefit of burden should stay. the same.
Okay, I'll see, maybe I'll see what Lori's out
So I think if the state wants to do this, so we can do a lottery for the cesspool. This is strictly.
No, they weren't planning on having any informational hearings. They were just gonna do the public hearing, and it's only because they started getting pushback, including that they decided to do this information hearing. But that is gonna happen backwards.
But I would actually like them to come and do the presentation at the county council meeting. So the whole public can watch it for 5 minutes on TV and get the comments of the council.
Ask questions, answers all of
Right, I canceled all these things and I. I'm very Hilo, now, okay, let me do one of the. So, you guys are gonna come to
It only applies to only if they use audio. Audio communication.
640-8472-8274.
So that's.
Yeah, if they have any visual aids and we can't see it,
That's okay.
then the meeting, well, it was really active. But they didn't have any visual aids. Weren't available. They had to.
Right. Is there a way that you can do the bag thing and incorporate that when we send out our real property?
I think you gotta have a discussion with finance. I'm saying that there's different ways to do it. So I tell you, you'll be at Kansas. The concern has always been that people are afraid of increase.
Well, the voicemail is. Hi Marlene, it's Joy calling for Bart. He wants to leave now. Come and get him.
I'm just saying,
It is, well,
And we have guys who dump right now, and it's free. So if you go to South Road, if you go on every road along South, you would not believe couches, beds, you have to.
Yeah, too bad.
Why did you,
Well, what happened was,
and all that stuff you see different from my appraisal, did you go all the way to there?
so what that dragged us on for a while, we have
Use the refrigerator,
but the lock was and the fighters couldn't get insurance. They were getting so they were really nice.
The car. When the real property.
Hello, this is Hilo. Oh, cool, okay. So where's the water?
It's
That would be right for you. I can't see what it is. Well, I wouldn't come in too well. The situation is that the owners are getting a divorce and she's forced to sell.
If you want to make a call, please hang up and try again. If you need help, hang up and then dial your operator. If you want to make a call, please hang up and try again.
I showed it a couple times. It has seven times. This is the only place in France that's
Hello, is anybody there?
So, here's your, I gotta get the like,
There's another problem.
Oh, I just decided I'm not gonna worry about that. I'm gonna do it. I mean, I'm already getting this one.
Okay, so right there, down here, that gate, he's got two houses. This is on Facebook.
It's not this time for this.
We're telling them they can't go somewhere. I've seen what it is. Well, I mean, this is just page 20, just close to DOH. But I gotta get more. Yes. And my school sold that little house next to Gary Banks. No,
I hate it. We have to monitor social media every day.
Finally got
See what guys are saying.
It just don't, I mean, then buy it on one page, as they said. So we'd already had to fight it out as little price.
I've been having trouble. I had to create a new account too because my email, which was Hinano, I have so much garbage because, and now I have to go back and see whether I can get it. I have so much email because I gave the party one. So now I created a new Gmail account, which I don't use for marketing or fundraising or anything like that, just so that my, because I gotta go through hundreds of
The written testimony can come in.
by the 17th.
It's not written, it's written by us.
Yeah, by the 17th.
Testimony by the 17th.
Scott Burdick and Lisa Brenneman.
And we don't know how long, much longer this is gonna take.
I think we're, hello, this is Hilo.
Yeah, at a lower listing price.
Yeah, we're here. Yes, this is Hilo.
Yeah, they're.
Still gonna buy it, but
Yeah.
it fell apart, and they're
Yeah.
gonna put it back, you can put it back together.
Maui, are you there?
Hopefully it won't take 6 months.
We lost it.
And then she really wanted to do it that way, but I figured it was.
We're here.
We already have a
Hawaii, are you
negotiator,
there?
and they already, like, said.
Hawaii's here.
Reduce the prices as
It's
is.
Hawaii.
Okay.
Another yellow house.
It's in escrow too, and they got, they think they can get insurance. They're getting hold on.
Yeah, well, I called Mark about that.
Mark is
He said they just went to escrow.
That's the problem, that's one of the problems when the connection is lost and you have losing people because they can't sit and wait. And so you really interfere with their ability to participate when you have a significant time lapse.
Okay, so are we ready to start?
We just got, Hilo is still here.
Can I just leave? I'm gonna call the unprofessional phone on my cell phone. Wait, please. Okay.
So what?
They were doing a workshop on how to apply
Hi Gary, this is Joanna. Okay. Maui, are you still there? Yeah, we're here. Hilo, are you still there?
Hilo's here.
Can you hear, Kauai? Kauai, can you say something please? Yep, I'm here. Maui and Hilo, could you hear that? Yeah, we could hear that.
Yeah, we heard it.
Okay, we're gonna go forward then. Okay, so you guys gonna, what is that, come back to Maui? No, it's not video, it's all audio at this time. I know, but we're gonna do, over here. Yeah, you guys left off with us though. Oh, continue with us. Yeah. So,
Okay, we're going to resume the hearing. Everybody's connected. We're gonna start with testimony from Maui.
our hearing officer needs to come back to Maui and those.
No camera. You know?
Uh-huh.
Our understanding is that from our side, Jackie Hoover got interrupted.
Yeah, but she left already.
Jackie is still here. Jackie is still here.
Nice try.
Just can't see you.
This is Stephen Jacobson, the hearings office. I understand I still have Kauai, we have Kauai, we have Maui, and we have Hilo.
Yes.
And it is Maui's turn. Yeah, so Donna,
Excuse me, the last speaker, Hilo, we did not hear her full testimony.
No, it wasn't Maui actually. It was Donna King.
So Molokai and Lanai had no opportunity to participate via video.
And Hilo, and anyone who spoke after her, we didn't hear.
They are on separate islands.
Okay.
And I think she was third.
Yes, Jackie was our third speaker in Hilo.
Okay, she's
I'll
there.
just send it in written.
She's just gonna send the rest of her testimony via written.
Excuse me?
They can watch it on YouTube.
She's gonna submit written testimony in
Okay,
lieu of
thank you. All right, so that's,
re-testifying.
okay, so now we will go back to Maui. But we didn't hear anybody after her.
It's not your fault.
Okay, yeah, so the person that did, she left, Donna King, but she left her written, with a written comment. But then we have,
How many do you have left on Maui?
one,
Okay, let's have her, let's have him or her give her me off.
Lee, right? Okay, so, you can, speak.
Good afternoon. My name is Lee Aldrich, and I'm not representing anyone but myself and my wife. We live in Haiku, upcountry Maui. We live in a house for 15 years. We've had a cesspool there since the house was built in 1972, as far as I know, and it functions well. I've never had a problem with it. So I am opposed to the regulation amendment as written. In particular, I oppose this concept of a point of sale replacement of cesspools because it absolutely makes no sense at all. It does not address the problem. If the problem that you're trying to address is public health and environmental conditions and protection of waterways, our cesspool resides at 800 feet above sea level. It's a good 800 feet or nearly 800 feet above the groundwater table, since there is nothing but no perched groundwater table on the northwest slopes of Haleakala, and only the basal seawater groundwater level. And furthermore, we're 2 miles from the ocean, and we're hundreds of yards from anything that resembles even an ephemeral stream. So it makes absolutely no sense. And as someone else had already pointed out, the first one who sells the house, no matter whether or not they have an impact on the issue of water quality, is the one who pays for something that may not be necessary. Now, I want to give you a little personal background just so that you understand where I'm coming from. I'm a professional engineer. I'm licensed to practice here in Hawaii and in California. I served on the Maui County Board of Water Supply as the chair of that board in 2009. Prior to my retirement, I worked 20 years for a major international engineering design company, and I have been the project manager on designs of water treatment plants throughout Southern California, including the cities of Long Beach, Pomona, LA, you name it. I've also served as the chief engineer of the Contra Costa County Water District in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I served as a sanitary engineer for the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And 2 years as a Public Health Service Commissioned officer. And during many of those years, designed septic systems, not cesspools, but septic systems for many communities. This rule makes absolutely no sense. It does not attack the problem. It just forces homeowners to pay for something that is not necessary. And, I would add one final comment. I heard the Sierra Club make an impassioned plea in support of this. And my comment would be, why don't they just use their generous donations, put their money where their mouth is, and pay for these instead of forcing us to make those changes? So those are my comments. I don't know if I'll have a chance to write and submit comments. And the other comment I want to make is that this notice for this meeting was so short that they had no time to even really review the rationale behind these changes. And I only had an opportunity to look at them last night. So anyway, those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else? Okay, we're done here in Molly.
Okay, thank you. Okay, back to Hilo.
Okay, Hilo, most of our speakers have left, but would you like to go next?
Sure. How many do you have?
We have 4 speakers.
Okay, thank you. If we can, let's go ahead with them.
Do I need to?
No, just go ahead and speak.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Bobby Jean Leathed Todd. I'm currently the Director of the Department of Environmental Management for the County of Hawaii. We will be submitting written testimony later, but I felt that it was important that we comment in the only public hearing that is being noticed on the Big Island. Generally, the county does not have any objection to the ban on new cesspools. We have conferred with the mayor and managing director as well as other department heads on this, and we have no objection to that. We do have concerns over the upgrade from cesspools to septics upon sale. Briefly, we would like that you clarify what is meant by a sale to ensure that people who are transferring property into a trust or other similar types of transfers are not impacted by that definition if you decide to keep these rules as proposed. We're concerned about the impact on possibility of getting financing, the impact on sales, particularly on low-income residences. If you have $1 million home, a $10,000 addition to the cost of that home for a septic system is not a big issue. But on the Big Island, we have many, many homes that sell for less than $300,000. And adding an additional cost of $10,000 to $15,000 to the sale of that will basically make many of these sales either unaffordable for the seller or for the purchaser, and may put a significant crimp in the ability for people to sell homes or purchase homes. We are also unclear, based on the rule as proposed, what impact it would have on county staff resources. My assumption is that this would result in building permits as well as inspections of the building, including the closures of the cesspools by county staff. If the Department of Health is going to provide the staff to issue the permits, and the Department of Health is going to do all of those inspections, then there is no impact on the county. If instead you're expecting the county to provide that, I question whether we currently have the staff to handle additional permits, and also whether that would impact the 180 days. On the conversion, I think it might be better for the department to concentrate on sensitive areas. Those areas close to the shoreline, those areas where we've already had failures of cesspools, and those areas in close proximity to active streams. Because I think that would be a much more targeted and rule, and it would also achieve more of what you want to do. We are opposed to the change from 50 to 15 lots. One, we think that this would basically bring to a halt many of our rural subdivisions It would significantly increase the cost of the smaller subdivisions. For one example, the only experience that we have with a small package plant is with the transitional housing built off of Hilo Street in Kona that services 92 units. The cost of that was $2 million. The cost to operate and maintain it runs approximately $200 per housing unit. I question whether homeowners associations and homeowners could bear that kind of burden, of a cost that could run that high. It would have a particularly stranglehold impact on any affordable housing projects, elderly housing projects that we have on the island. I see no reason why those systems could not, those developments could not be served by septic tanks instead of having conversion to these small compact sewage treatment systems, which are very expensive and also potentially have greater risk of environmental harm because of the chemicals that are added to those plants, because of the potential that if something goes wrong, you have a much greater risk. With a septic tank, you have a risk of one house. When you have a package system, you have the risk that all of those homes' sewage flowing into that treatment plant could then be released, or it is, I think you're possibly increasing your risk of environmental harm. Then the other questions we have, I'm not sure what impact the additional septage will have on wastewater treatment plants. And this is based on the fact that even when you increase to septic, if you have something like you have 50,000 septic tanks to replace the cesspools, all of that septage gets pumped and ends up at wastewater treatment plants. I don't know at what point it would impact those operations and whether it would then force upgrades to the wastewater treatment plants. But it's something that I would like you to be thinking about because obviously it's going to have an impact on county operations. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I would urge that there be a public hearing scheduled for Kona. Kona is 100 miles away from here. It is a great hardship for people there to have come to Hilo, and many people were not able to participate. I also would suggest that you allow that public testimony after you have the informational briefing, because this really is kind of a backwards process to have the testimony before you have the informational briefing. Other than that, thank you, and we will be submitting our comments in writing.
Thank you. Next witness, please.
Go ahead and identify yourself to the microphone. Right here.
Okay. Aloha, my name is Maureen Cruz. I reside in Leilani Estates and a stakeholder in good standing with the Leilani Homeowners Association. I'm a citizen of Waikiki County Island and am also in good standing. I agree with the oral comments made by Mr. Williams, Ms. Carter, and Ms. Todd in Hilo. My purpose here is to submit my written testimony given to the Department of Energy public hearing on Wednesday, May 14, 2014. This testimony was sent in and received prior to the storm and to the ongoing lava flow. I would like the Department of Health to consider, respond, and acknowledge the matters that are of great concern to me and to others like myself. Number one, civil and political rights, specifically infringements and discrimination. Due diligence in reference to human rights assessments, homeowners associations, and the Class Action Fairness Act of 2005.
Okay, excuse me, I think, are you addressing the regulations that are being proposed?
Subject matter jurisdiction relating to the law of the sea known as UNCLOS 1, 2, and 3. Fiduciary duties of all county mayors in their respective jurisdictions. Thank you very much for taking the time and effort to conduct this hearing.
Thank you. Next witness, please.
Aloha, my name is Margaret Willie. I'm the County Council member for District 9, that's North and South Kohala. I'm also an attorney. I spent many years working on areas of environmental issues, and I commend your vision that we work towards taking care of our reef, our fish, our waters, but at the same time I have grave concerns about how you are proceeding. When we look at our 2050 sustainability plans, we try to look at it as a three-prong approach. One is environmental, one is economic, and the third is social. And I think here we really there's a lack of balance there, and in particular in terms of your time frame and everything being black and white. I think you need to take more of a step-by-step approach. Start with the sensitive areas where there is actual harm going on right now, where it's very unlikely. Say, where I live in Waimea at 2,800 feet in a valley, I think you just have to start where there is an actual harm. Within the shoreline management area, I know I've just given contingency funds to Puako area to work on it there. Second, you need to differentiate between the existing cesspools and the new and expanded. On existing cesspools, you've got people where those homes where there is in fact insufficient area to, even at any cost, to put in a system, which in my mind would arise to a taking or a retroactive law or unsaleable or however you want to couch it. And I think you need to keep in mind the concept that what you're doing is you're weighing between the common good and what's good for all and private property rights. And where you have a common good area, you need to look at the benefit and the burden should go together. It shouldn't be that the benefit is all for the public good and the cost is on the individuals that are impacted. And that is why, say with Puako, I see that as not just a Puako homeowners issue, I see that as an entire district issue, if not a county issue because of the important reef and fish in that area. And it may be that there should just be a cap for what the private person plays. I mean, if we had to go to the extent of having a lottery to pay for all of this, we need to do that. Again, I think let's look at, there's a continuum here in terms of the sensitive areas and moving beyond. I also agree with the comments as to this arbitrary cutoff of 15 lots and 50, and at least in my district, there are places where I think it would actually be better environmentally to have the individual systems rather than these wastewater systems, that common ones that tend not to be monitored. And I just